Sir, welcome. Welcome back. Great to have you with us.
Hey, great to be with you again, Steve.
Rich, I got to Monday's show, and I said to everybody, I'll be honest with you, I don't really know what to say. Because I don't know if you came to the same conclusion I did. I didn't really know what to say out of the gate after that.
Well, the feedback I got right away was comparing it to the 6-4 game against Iowa in 2004. And I think there was more to chew on in this game than in that game. What I remember from that game is Iowa choosing to take a safety rather than okay. So but I don't remember much from that. I know Penn State's offense obviously struggled. There were so many things in this game, Steve, and the one thing that's going to be lost, I think, especially even today, it's Thursday, is the new NCAA rule with the overtime rule, starting with the third overtime.
Right.
I've heard nobody say, "Oh, that's a great rule. What a great," it's just goofy. It's not really football, and I compare it to what MLB did the last 2 years with putting a runner on second base in the 10th inning of games. It's not the sport. Okay. The biggest takeaway I took from the game, two things. One, Sean Clifford's health. Obviously, he was nowhere near 100% against Illinois, and that really handicapped the Penn State offense. And two, the running game's continued struggles. I'm dumbfounded by it 7 games into the season why Penn State has not been very productive in the running game with 3 returning starters on the offensive line. Those two are my biggest takeaways.
Yeah. So let me get to the overtime part first. I kind of felt with what they're doing with this. Look, I understand you're trying to avoid the 260-play LSU Texas A&M game from 2018. So I understand that part of it. And I understand the safety part of it. But I felt like we were doing soccer, and now it's being decided on penalty kicks.
That's a good analogy as well. I agree. I didn't like it. It felt very non-footballish. It just did. I just didn't like it at all. And that was when it first started. I didn't like it, not because Penn State lost the game. It didn't have a football feel to it to me. It just was like one play after the other, and then they were changing fields and let's go. It was. And obviously for everyone, it just lasted forever. But the main thing is it's not – I like college football's overtime rule. I like each team starting from the 25. Mm-hmm. I didn't like this at all.
No, and and I had not seen it on TV to this point. So this is the first time I actually saw it. I mean, I had to experience it, but it was the first time I ever saw it. And I thought, I knew what the rule was going in. I explained it to start overtime, but – I don't know. I don't think that's the way to decide things, but that's. But I saw Steve Shaw from the NCAA. This was great. I'm like, okay, I'm glad you think it's great. All right, but now you got to move forward from this, and you got to move forward and obviously take on somebody in their place that normally plays great at their place. So, what's your thought now moving forward with this team?
Well, I just did. A show that I do here in Reading and Berks County, and I just taped that, and I said this. If Sean Clifford is not close to 100%, and he and James Franklin said he will be by game time, then, everything's on the table for these next 5 games. It's pretty clear. If he can't be anything near close to 100%, I think Penn State's going to struggle the next 5 games. And let's start Saturday night. Ohio State's defense is not great. It's coming on. It's playing better. It limited Indiana to 128 yards last week. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have a healthy Sean Clifford, you are really, really starting behind things.
The defense did create 3 takeaways in the game, and one of the problems ended up being that they could only convert 3 points out of that. Which ended up being an issue, obviously, in the game. The defense is now going up against an offense, and Bill Landis of The Athletic is the one that should get the credit for coming up with this. The last 156 plays that C.J. Stroud has been on the field at quarterback, Ohio State scored 150 points. All right. Now, that's quite a stat, obviously.
It is.
Now, it's been like Patton Third Army going through the south of France. There wasn't any resistance. I mean, we all know that. But what about the Penn State defense matching up with this offense?
Yeah, I like the matchup, actually.
Me too.
And I think this is Ohio. This is the best defense Ohio State will have faced this year to this point. I don't think anybody can argue that. They have two great receivers in Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson.
Yes.
We know that. And Penn State secondary, you and I have said this at least once or twice, is the best secondary that I can remember that Penn State has had. And I think it's a great matchup for Penn State, and I'm interested to see how they do. What I'm more interested in is how Penn State's run defense defends TreVeyon Henderson.
Yes.
And I think that's going to be a big part of Ohio State's offense on Saturday night.
Yes, the Henderson is interesting because he's really only been playing because the way they've been running up numbers. He's only been playing half the game. You watch him on tape. Jeez, Rich, he's explosive. I mean, I'm talking like bang, he goes. I mean, I'm very impressed by him. I don't know how much you've seen of him.
I've seen very little of him, but what I've seen highlights. I've not seen any live action, but what I've seen of him, I've been very, very impressed. And if Penn State can't slow him, then it could be a long night. And I think that's the real key, is slowing him down, especially after last week. And I want to say this, just one last thing about last week's game.
Yep.
About the defense. I mean, yes, the defense gave up an extraordinary amount of yards, 373. We know that. Rushing yards, excuse me. And I'm with James Franklin. I wrote this Monday. They still only gave up 10 points in regulation and created 3 turnovers. To me, you can point fingers, but not at the defense. Okay. Having said that, they obviously have a chore on their hands Saturday night. You're playing the team in their stadium, the number one scoring team in America. Yes, they haven't played some great defenses. We know that. But Henderson I think is a really, really good back, and obviously their passing game has been outstanding. So this is Penn State's biggest challenge. Penn State defense's biggest challenge too.
Yeah, I mean, no question. It's the biggest challenge on both sides. Oregon was able to run the ball. Unfortunately for them, Vidrell's now out for the season, and they won the game without. I mean, here's the amazing part. Oregon won the game without Thibodeau and one other defensive starter playing in the game. I found that to be, now I know that it probably feels to them like it was 10 years ago, but that's the part that really strikes me about this, is that Oregon still won the game without 2 players and one people consider to be a top 5 draft pick.
Yeah, again, that was I didn't see much of that game. I'm trying to think what week that was. I was probably writing stories.
I think that was the home opener with Ball State, the 3:30 game.
So,
yeah.
So I was writing, so I didn't get to see that game. But I know this. I know Ohio State, according to James Franklin and several Penn State defensive players, they've tweaked the defense. They've obviously changed the play caller, and they're playing a more basic defense, and with a lot of success. Again, maybe that's predicated on who they played. I don't know, but I'm interested in seeing that matchup. But I think the game is going to be won and lost on the other matchup, Penn State's offense against Ohio State's defense. I think that's where the game is going to be won and lost. You
want to score points, or you want to keep them off the field?
That's the other thing.
That's the whole point. I mean, you want to score points, and and at the same time, keep Ohio State's offense off the field, watching you score points. And I think you got to play with the lead too.
Right, and that means you got to be able to run the ball even a little bit against Ohio State. And right now we don't know that that's possible because we just don't know. So yeah, and if Sean Clifford can't run, I mean, he didn't run last week because he was protecting himself. Then that takes a big component out of your running game too.
Yeah, and no question about that. When you've encountered either comments or have people talk to you, what have fans said to you?
It's not been pretty.
Yeah.
And as you know, you've been around the game and sports a long, long time, and so have I.
Yeah.
When you win, there's an overreaction, and when you lose, there's an overreaction.
Always.
And this is as typical as it gets. I mean, yeah, it was a bad loss. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And Penn State has one of the toughest remaining schedules in the country. And if they don't get some things straightened out, things could get, fans could get even more ornery than they've been this week.
Right.
But we'll see. I mean, let's see what happens these next 5 games. There's a lot of football left. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I think there's no question the fans were pretty upset by last Saturday, and
right.
Yeah, with some of them turned away from the game on TV, according to my Twitter feed.
Okay. Quickly, Arizona, Green Bay, shortage of wideouts tonight, but this is a heck of a Thursday game, though. Your thoughts?
Well, now you hit me in the heart. I just don't. I think Green Bay goes into this game handicapped, obviously, without Devontae Adams.
No
doubt.
Yeah.
I just saw Vantes. Oh gosh, MVS isn't playing either. They're not going to activate him off the
Scantling.
IR.
Yeah, Scanling's not playing. Yeah.
No, so you're going to see a lot of tight ends. I could tell you that for Green Bay when they're on the field. I don't know. I just don't like their chances when you don't have maybe the best receiver in all of pro football on the field. It's a shame because I think this is a great matchup, and it would have been a lot better if Devontae Adams could play. So we'll see. I'll watch later and keep my fingers crossed.
Hey, I look forward to seeing you in Columbus.
Same here, Steve. Thank you.